Good morning, philosophers. I have skimmed ahead in this book because it is losing my interest, and I'm trying to find the best ways to get the most out of it and then move on. Chapter 9 is about panic attacks. Chapter 10 is about money and stress around money. Let's see. Chapter 11 is about compulsive drinking and talking about the problems with Alcoholics Anonymous. The next one's about social anxiety. And then, let's see, 13 is about getting upset about being upset. And honestly, I'm just not in a place where I need or I'm interested in reading those things. So hopefully, for the people listening, when I switch to a new book tomorrow, hopefully that's not too frustrating for the listeners for me to start jumping around and then just move on to a different book altogether. But please remember, these are my morning reading times. I'm going to read what I'm going to read, and if you want to do your own reading, guys, you should be doing your own morning think times. And there's a link to this book in the description. You can read it as slowly, as completely, as in-depth as you want. So for me, I'm going to basically jump towards the end of the book and maybe hit little bits of the last two chapters. Chapter 14 is How to Be Happy, a Beginning. Starts with a Chinese proverb: every journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Some years ago, the scripts of the Monty Python TV comedy shows were released in book form under the title The Complete Works of Shakespeare and Monty Python, Volume 1, Monty Python. In the same spirit, we might have called this book How to Become Happy, Wise, and Successful, Volume 1, How to Stop Making Yourself Miserable. People often look for a sudden psychotherapeutic cure, which will at one stroke guarantee their elevation to a higher plane of living, where there is no danger of being irrational, neurotic, or self-destructive. No such miracle cure exists. This doesn't mean that lasting happiness is forever beyond your reach, but you're unlikely to attain it without some modest first steps, and as long as you fail to attain it, these modest first steps will still improve your life to some extent. If you're anxious or depressed, it's probably because you make yourself anxious or depressed by the way you think. Reading this book will put you on the road to being able to overcome your unhappiness by changing your thinking. Achieving your goals. 3-Minute Therapy is a tool designed to help you become better at achieving your goals. It does not tell you what those goals should be, whether you should have many children or remain childless, whether you should work hard and increase your money income or take things easier and retire with few savings, whether science is more important than art or religion. These are all questions this book does not try to answer. Whatever your life's goals, you will be happier if they are motivated by preferences rather than by demands. You will be happier if you take practical, rational steps to attain your goals, while always accepting that you may fail to attain some of them. If you have goals that are being frustrated by an emotional or behavioral problem, eliminating or diminishing that problem then becomes a goal for you. Thus, if one of your goals is to publish a novel and your depression is slowing down your writing it, conquering your depression becomes, in its turn, a goal for you. Most of the chapters in this book cover specific problems, such as procrastination or worry. If you have such a problem, reread the corresponding chapter in this book several times and practice the recommended exercises. If your problem is not discussed specifically, you can still easily adapt the lessons of this book to fit your requirements. Perhaps you have one of the following problems. You are unattached and your goal is to meet a partner for companionship, sex, love, and marriage. You are unhappy with your line of work and desire to move into a different field. You have a sexual problem such as impotence or difficulty achieving orgasm. None of these problems is the subject of a chapter in this book, but you can analyze your problem first by applying the problem separation technique to identify your practical problem and your emotional problem. Quite likely, your emotional problem is discussed in this book. For example, if your practical problem is that you are unattached and long for a relationship, your emotional behavioral problem may be social anxiety, or it may be procrastination. Skipping ahead. Some common objections to 3-Minute Therapy. Number 1. Don't we need to get at the childhood roots of personal problems? Emotional and behavioral problems do not have childhood roots. They have cognitive roots. It's your present beliefs which create your problem. Even if you did accept and begin to act upon these beliefs when you were a child, those beliefs are harming you because you follow them now. How you came by your self-destructive ideas may be fascinating if you want to understand your life story, but it has no bearing on the solution to your problems, which lies in getting rid of those bogus beliefs. Number 2. Isn't 3-minute therapy just common sense? When people refer to common sense, they are usually thinking of truths which everyone accepts without argument. Common sense is what everyone knows already. But some beliefs considered to be common sense are wrong. At one time it was considered common sense that the earth was flat and that iron ships would not float. Some things in 3-minute therapy are contrary to present-day common sense. To judge by TV shows and movies, a great many people know that a stressful childhood experience can be forgotten, yet can still influence your behavior in ways that you don't understand. These people also know that by remembering and reliving that forgotten childhood trauma, you can become better able to cope with difficulties. But this common sense, quote, knowledge is mistaken. Not forgotten event. I just lost my ability to read. No forgotten event in your past can possibly upset you. You may, however, upset yourself by trying to remember some supposedly forgotten event and then dwelling morbidly on it. There are many other bits of common sense or folk wisdom which are just plain false. To mention only a few of the popular fallacies we have already mentioned, it's widely believed that a certain amount of anxiety or stage fright is helpful to a public speaker, that students will learn more if they feel better about themselves, and that the only way to terminate a habit of excessive drinking is by becoming a total abstainer. All these popular beliefs and many others are mistaken. Although some ideas that pass for present-day common sense are false, others are true. But this does not mean that the best solution to emotional or behavioral problems is obvious. If you ask a plumber to explain how he tackles a leaky water pipe and why, his explanation will not astound you by its daring leaps of imagination. Every piece of his explanation will sound like common sense, yet knowing which bits of common sense to put together in a particular situation is a skill that requires application and learning. No one would be able, merely by thinking about the truths of common sense, to figure out for themselves all of the techniques and practical skills needed to be a plumber. It's the same with 3-minute therapy. 3. 3-minute therapy denies that certain things are awful, terrible, or horrible, but some things really are bad. Dying slowly of AIDS or having your family killed by terrorists really are dreadful prospects to have to face. We don't dispute that such things are very bad, nor do we deny that people strongly prefer these things not to happen to them. It is rational to take steps to make such possibilities less likely, but in demanding that they absolutely must not happen, you would be asking the universe something that it cannot deliver. Sadly, such things do happen to people, and it is both unreasonable and harmful to believe that they must not. 4. People are the way they are. Since I've been this way as long as I can remember, I must be a hopeless case. It must be a deep-seated part of my constitution, so obviously psychotherapy is going to be ineffective. People do change in ways that diminish their problems quite dramatically. Drunks and drug addicts do sometimes graduate from heavy to moderate, manageable consumption, or complete abstinence. Long-time procrastinators can change their habits and become far less procrastinating than most. People who suffer crippling anxiety for years do sometimes become quite optimistic and carefree. Victims of phobias lose their fears. Unhappy obese people become happily and permanently slim. The fact that you have behaved a certain way many times in the past does not prove that you are destined always to behave that way. 5. 3-minute therapy says that feelings come from thinking, and undesirable feelings can be eliminated by changing one's thinking, but this can't be true. For example, I feel terribly hurt because Terry, the person I love, has rejected me. I know that there's no reason to think I need Terry's love. I'm fully aware that I don't become a worthless person if Terry rejects me. I have no illusions, yet I still feel awful. The thinking that causes your upset may not be obvious to you. It may not be what you think you think. It may not be what you think you think. This is not because your thinking is unconscious or disguised. It's simply that part of our thinking is automatic or knee-jerk. Imagine yourself sitting next to a swimming pool that has a high diving board. As you watch others dive off the high board, you know that it's safe to jump. You decide to give it a try. You climb up the ladder to the high board and cautiously walk to the end. Now you glance down and think how high up you are. You start thinking, it's so far down, what if I'm hurt? I must have a guarantee I won't be. If your heart starts pounding, your skin starts perspiring profusely, you timidly back off and climb back down the ladder. What happened here? Safe by the side of the pool, you know that you can probably jump from the top board without being hurt, and that it is folly to demand a guarantee certifying that you will survive. But when you're on the high board looking down at the water far below, then you know that without an ironclad guarantee, the risk of jumping would be awful. You evidently have two contradictory beliefs. The stronger of these two beliefs is responsible for your fear. That's why 3-Minute Therapy emphasizes that mere casual assent or lip service to the quote, correct belief is not enough. All right, skipping ahead. Number 7. Isn't it authentically human to have feelings like anger and depression? Sure. And it's authentically human to suffer from toothache or appendicitis. Such feelings as anger and depression are virtually always self-defeating, authentically human or not. Of course, it's your perfect right to hold on to your anger or depression for whatever reasons you wish. However, we recommend that you weigh all the advantages and disadvantages before you decide to do so. Skipping ahead, number 8. I have been working conscientiously at my 3-minute exercises, and I've been facing my feared situations more, but my anxiety has diminished only very slightly. Moving on. Number 9. 3-minute therapy sounds heartless and calculating. I don't sense any real love and caring. 3-minute therapy works. That's the point. That last answer proves you're heartless and calculating. True compassion and caring calls for an approach that really helps people with their suffering, as 3-minute therapy does. It can only do harm to encourage people to wallow in their victimhood and self-pity. Based. 10. 3-minute therapy sounds as if it might destroy the extremes of emotion, the summits as well as the valleys. But it's better to experience the lows and the highs than to be stable and rational all the time and miss out on ecstatic peaks. Some kinds of peaks will indeed cease or diminish. Certain kinds of elation or euphoria are associated with cycles of desperate urgency to satisfy musts. But truly satisfying peaks tend to become higher and more frequent if misery is reduced. Moving on. 11. I've read that scientists are now showing how moods and emotions are generated by the brain. Doesn't this mean that emotional problems are genetically determined and can only be treated effectively by medication? Our brain chemistry, considerably influenced by our genes, does affect our emotional states. But we can learn ways to improve our thinking, feeling, and behaving. This does not contradict the existence of genetic influences. Consider the ability to play the piano. Millions of people set out to learn the piano. They vary considerably in the level of skill they attain. One important factor in determining who will become a pianist as brilliant as Horowitz is genetic predisposition. Yet, almost anyone can learn to play the piano passably well. Anyone who can play can improve by more practice, and Horowitz himself could never have become a great pianist or even a mediocre pianist if he had never had lessons. It's the same with other skills, such as skating, tennis, or calculating the odds in a game of poker. There are genetic differences which mean that with any skill some people can learn it more easily than other people, but anyone can improve his performance at these activities by practice. Skipping ahead, number 12. One method can't possibly work for everyone. People are so different. By a method, do you mean the overall approach, or do you mean the specific techniques within that approach? If you mean the overall approach, then 3-minute therapy can indeed work for everyone capable of reading and understanding this book, just as the theory of ballistics will work for all moving objects, golf balls or space shuttles. The specific techniques vary according to their Okay, moving on. 13. How can I make myself do the 3-minute exercises? I take it this means you acknowledge that doing the 3-minute exercises would be valuable for you. would help you attain your goals and have a happier life, yet you are not doing the exercises. Your problem is probably procrastination. Study Chapter 6. Okay. I think this is the last chapter. Let's see. Yep, a couple pages. The 5 unique advantages of REBT. Number 1, philosophy. REBT addresses the philosophical basis of emotional disturbance as well as the distorted cognitions, the sole focus of some kinds of CBT, which makes it more powerful. As you uproot your absolutistic demands, your cognitive distortions get corrected. And I'm not going to read the explanations of that because I feel like I've read the same thing 18 times in this book. Secondary disturbance, unconditional self-acceptance. Number 4, helpful negative emotions. Number 5, all anger is unhelpful. The end. The end. Okay. Feels good to have pseudo-finished this book. It just got so repetitive. Oh my god, it was repetitive for a while. Okay. Well, at least I have a book on the shelf that if I have any of those problems in the future, I can crack the book open and read the chapters involved. Whew. Whew. Okay. Wow. What is my thoughts for today? Man, you know how like several weeks ago I was talking about how I was trying to get 15 minutes of sun every day? Maybe that was in the bullet journal video on Disenthrall, but it has been rainy, or it feels like a month straight. I know it's probably only been like 5 days straight, but it's been cloudy and rainy. I haven't seen the sun in 5 days, and I just was noticing today how much that has been affecting my mood. So, you know, I've been changing my diet to experiment to see how that's affecting me. But the sun thing is making it difficult to tell if it's just the lack of fresh air and sunlight and outdoor time, or, you know, if it's the diet or whatever. Man, I've been in a funk. And so today I've got a lot to do, and I'm just going to sort of attempt to just brute force correct my thinking. Today is going to be a good day because I said it will be. And I'm going to be happy and cheerful and productive, and I'm going to make this a badass day no matter what happens, no matter if it stays dreary and cloudy and rainy outside, whatever happens. Today's going to be a good day. That's what I'm thinking about today. I'll let you know how it works. Guys, I hope you are having a badass day. Take it easy.